Thank you so much, Brittany. My name is Kelly, and I'm alcoholic. And I am grateful to be here, and I'm very grateful to be sober. And when Brittany said she's such a ray of sunshine, I was thinking, my God, like that is the farthest thing from where I was, and it's just a miracle. And thanks to this program today, I am that to some people. On some days, not all days for sure. So I'm nervous. I always like to tell people that just because for some reason it helps me feel better. I do have a sobriety date. It is May 3rd, 2007. I have a home group. This is it. We meet obviously on Saturday nights at 8 o'clock for an open speaker, and Tuesday nights for a closed discussion at 8 o'clock. And if you are new or visiting, we would love to have you guys come. So I'm going to tell you what it was like, what happened, and what it's like today to the best of my ability without lying or cussing too much. So we'll see how that goes. So I will start out by telling you that I was born and raised in Bass, not far from here. It's a tiny, tiny little town, not much happening in Bass, unless you have cows and horses, which we didn't. We lived in a trailer park, so really nothing going on. I was raised in a family, in a home where alcohol was a huge, huge part of what my family did. Drinking was always, I don't know if always, but there was always a case of beer in the refrigerator. Drinking always, at least on the weekends was going on. My parents loved to throw down. And either the party was at our house or we went to the party. Some of my earliest memories were when I was a tiny little girl sitting on the tailgate of my daddy's truck by the bonfire listening to loud music. My dad's throwing them back, and kids were over in the other field playing, but I was chilling with my dad. I was always a daddy's girl. And I always loved, I loved like the environment of like the party setting. I mean, just from a pretty young age. I mean, I loved the chaos of it. And sometimes I still love chaos in my life. Not nearly as much as I did back then, but I really did. I enjoyed that. I enjoyed being around it for a little while. And then that changed later on in life. I have an older brother. He's 2 years older than me. We had a typical relationship, beat each other up, called each other names. He picked on me, I picked on him. That's what we do. He was not a defender of me when I was in school by any means. I don't know. I think that's just in movies, because that was not the way that our relationship was at all. So through school, basically, I hated school. Totally, absolutely hated it. I was picked on a lot in school. I had hair that was never brushed. I had teeth that were way too big for my head. Go figure. They stuck out to here, and they had a gap this big. We were poor. We didn't have cool clothes. My shoes always sucked. So I felt like, that's what I felt like at least. So like school was just horrible for me. I hated every single morning getting up thinking that I had to go to school. It was no fun. And I was picked on a lot. I used to always say, like, if I was the only kid in class, it would probably be okay. Story of my life. If I was the only one in the room, it would probably be okay. I didn't play well with others. I got unsatisfactory reports on most of my report cards, or an N for needs improvement, or, talks too much, doesn't listen, daydreamer, whatever. I never got positive reports on my report card. So needless to say, I just didn't do real well in school. I did not excel in that area of my life. By the time I was 13 years old, I knew that there was something very wrong with me. And I just did not, we hear each other share in meetings that, we didn't feel comfortable in our own skin, that we felt like we never fit in, that we didn't connect well with others. And, my story is no different. I felt the same way. I was restless, irritable, and discontent. Some of my earliest memories, that's what I felt. By the time I was 13 years old, hey Chuck, I felt like, glad you made it. No, he's got a legit reason. Anyway, so by the time I was 13 years old, I was absolutely restless, irritable, and discontent. I believe if I had not have found alcohol at that age, I would have been a kid that took her own life, or blew the school up, or, did something, to that effect, because I absolutely was so unbelievably uncomfortable in my own skin. just horrible. And at that age, I did find alcohol. I remember, now before this, I had taken sips out of my mom and dad's, little red Solo cups. They always were sitting around the house on the weekend. So I had taste, a taste of alcohol before. But when I was about 13 years old, I remember that it was very much a planned drunk with myself and a group of friends. And so we went out. I remember that my friend Lindsay and my other friend William, we were very good friends in school. And my friend had an older sister who provided the alcohol. The parents were out of town. We all lied to each other's parents, said that we were staying with this person, they were staying with us, and they were staying, you know how it is. And so we did that. And that night, I have absolutely no idea what I drank, but I know that I had the best time ever. I remember... I just remember a portion of the night, to be honest with you. I remember before I left, though, I stole a pack of cigarettes because I knew one thing for sure. When you were drinking, you had to smoke. That just went hand in hand always. So I did do that before I left. And I remember that night that I guess I went into a blackout at some point. The last thing I remember was trying to get my friends to play Mousetrap with me, which was a board game I hadn't played since I was like 2. And so I was trying to get them to do that. And when I came to, I was in the bathroom throwing up. Prior to that, my friend William had dragged me into the bedroom, put me on a water bed, I guess trying to console me. I guess that was pretty wild. And I threw up all over him, all over the waterbed, all over my friend's sister's clothes. And then they dragged me into the bathroom, and that's where I spent the rest of the night. And I'll tell you what, the next morning, I remember we have a picture. And the next morning, my hair was like matted in my head, and it was just disgusting. And I did not think one time, God, that sucked. I'll never do that again. Like, the only thing I could think was that was awesome. Because for the first time in my life, really and truly, for the first time in my life, I felt, I really did feel at ease. I felt okay that night. I felt right and whole and complete with the world. It was like, I don't know, I just felt normal. I felt okay. So I couldn't wait to do that again. I didn't want to get sick, but I couldn't wait to do it again. And, from that point on, really and truly, I didn't become an everyday drinker. It's hard to do at 13. But every chance I got, I drank. Every chance I got. I did a whole lot of other stuff, and I won't go into detail with that, but I will tell you, I was stealing cough syrup from Walgreens and anywhere else I could to get the same effect that alcohol produced when I couldn't get booze. So anything I could get my hands on, that's what I was doing. Like I said, there was usually a case of beer in the refrigerator, so I could always sneak that, So at this point, I don't know what grade I was in when I was 13 years old, but, slowly but surely, my grades in school were going downhill. My relationship with my parents were never really that great, but that started to deteriorate. My relationship with my brother was going downhill. Things progressively got worse for me pretty quickly. I remember that pretty soon I started sneaking out of the house to meet people at the end of the road. People would pick me up. We'd go on the weekend or even during the week and drink and party. We'd steal booze from wherever. And that was a pretty normal thing for me. By the time I was 17 years old, my life, well, let me back up just a little bit. So I'll tell you just a little bit about me. So I was in the band. I was one of those, and I played the flute. And in middle school, I played the flute in the band. And I remember in the 8th grade, before we went into high school, my band teacher asked me. He said, "Now, Kelly, what is your plan when we get into what do you plan on doing? Do you want to be in the concert band, the marching band? Do you want to be in the band?" And I said, I really do. I'd really like to be in the marching band. And he said, "Well, so are you thinking color guard?" And for those of you who don't know, color guard, they twirl the flags. That was not appealing to me. I said, no, I want to play the flute. So I was not very good at the flute, and he was trying to discourage me from doing that and to twirl a flag instead. And I was like horrified. I was totally like, I thought that I was pretty good. And so I said, no, I'm going to do this, and I'm beating this thing all up. And so anyway, I practiced morning, noon, and night because I was going to be the absolute best flautist there I'd ever been. And prior to getting kicked out of high school, comes later. I was first chair all district, first chair all county, first chair in the woodwind ensemble. I was the marching band woodwind captain. I mean, I was like it, son. You know, like when in Bill's story when they said like he had arrived. I mean, that was me. You know, I wasn't on Wall Street. I was in high school, but I had arrived. You know what I'm saying? And all the while I'm drinking. You know, this whole time. But it just goes to show. You know. Eventually, all of that was ripped away from me. I won Outstanding Woodwind every year that I was in high school, and I was in line for a scholarship, a full scholarship to play music. So I've been really emotional this week, excuse me. And that was taken away from me. Alcohol took that away from me, took it away. My band teacher used to hold up the band before a show or before a competition because he knew I'd be there. I was just always a little bit late, you know, because I was getting drunk somewhere else before I got there. And so it just goes to show, like in our literature, when it talks about the alcoholic's will is incredibly, incredibly strong in so many aspects of his life, in most aspects of his life, except in dealing with alcohol. You know, that was me. You know, I had an incredibly strong will, and I was going to do this, and I did it. And then slowly but surely, alcohol took that away. And it's just disgusting what it does to us. But anyway, so that was ripped away from me. By the time I was 17 years old, I rarely attended school at this point. I was pretty much, what was happening was my brother had a driver's license at that time. I, however, did not get my license until I got sober. Isn't that incredible? So that just goes to show you where my priorities were, too. So my brother was driving me to school every day, and I'd get out and I'd go like I was walking to class, and then he'd bypass me, and I'd turn around and I'd go meet someone in the parking lot, and I'd be drinking at least by 8 o'clock in the morning. And then I'd spend most of the day doing that. Maybe I'd make it back to school, maybe. Band was fourth period, so a lot of times I'd come stumbling into band class. You know, why? I don't really know. But I'd always try to make it back at least for that. So that's what was going on my junior year of high school. At this point, I had been institutionalized several times. My parents were sure that I was crazy. I was too. I had done a whole lot of damage at this point. I had been caught in many, many lies. I had shown up drunk many times. My parents kind of were catching on to what was going on. I didn't realize how much they were catching on to what was going on. My mom had me seeing a shrink. I was on all sorts of medication. I mean, surely that was the solution. Surely. And I was hoping it was too. But this was the last thing from my mind, you know, thinking that was a problem. So anyway, by the time I was 17 years old, things were very much out of control for me. Things had gone downhill really quick. I remember I was coming out of band class, fourth period one day, and you know, out in the parking lot was the old Cutlass Sierra, and I saw the big hair in the driver's seat, and I knew that was bad stuff. I knew because my mama had real big hair, and then I saw the trucker's hat in the passenger seat, and it was my daddy, and I knew, like, both my parents were, I mean, we were poor, let me just tell you. So both my parents worked full time, had to, and so for both of them to be off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, I knew that it was bad news. I mean, the gig was up, and I got closer. There were suitcases in the back. My life was over for sure. And so I found out, you know, my parents had been doing some research on the side. I guess they had talked to a therapist, found out that maybe I had a problem with drinking. I'd never been honest with a therapist that was going on ever. But they had found some stuff in my room and kind of caught on. What's crazy is, like, I would drink in my room. I used to drink in my closet. I mean, so, like, the term closet drinker was like real for me. And I don't know why. And I'd smoke cigarettes, dude. Like, I would smoke cigarettes out the screen in my bedroom. Both of my parents smoked in the house. I mean, like, I thought that they would know that was my cigarette smoke. You know what I'm saying? It's crazy. So that's what I did. But here's the crazy thing. I would throw the cans on the top shelf of my closet. So, like, I was like, and there was always cans of beer in the trash can. I mean, this is crazy. So they found them and called on. And anyway, so they were at school to pick me up and to haul me away. So the gig was up, and I was 17 years old, and I got in the back seat. I didn't say a word. Mama didn't say nothing to me. Daddy didn't say nothing. And they took me to the hospital. And I'm going to tell you what, I thought for sure. I mean, this was the worst thing, absolutely, that could happen to me at 17. I mean, I'd rather be locked up at Holly Hill any day of the week than to be taken to a hospital and told that I was going into an adolescent treatment program, which is what happened. While I was at the hospital, I met a guy who came in. I thought he was 105, and he came in and he talked to me about alcoholism, but he didn't talk at me. He shared his story with me, and I later found out that he's a member of Alcoholics Anonymous and has been for a very long time. But that was the first time anyone had ever shared their story with me, and he got me to laugh, and I could identify somewhat with what he was talking about. And then he told me where I was going to be going. So I went to a 7-day detox facility, and then I came back here and just right across the street, hop skipping away, to an adolescent treatment center. And on October 5th, 2005, I was introduced to Alcoholics Anonymous. 17 years old, hair on fire, crawling out of my skin, absolutely miserable in a meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous. And I will never, never forget that very first night. Now, I don't have a clue what anybody was talking about. I had no idea. I remember Donnie was at that meeting. It was on a Wednesday night at Westside, and I remember that when they offered the chips, the guy beside me nudged me and said, "Hey kid, you might want to get one of those." And I thought, sure, why not? And I got up crying my eyes out, and I walked up to the front and I picked up a white chip. I had no idea what was in store. I had no idea what this journey was about. I just knew that it felt like a life sentence, to be honest with you, at that point. So thus my journey began, and naturally, as a result of being sober, I started to feel a little bit better, and I did start to come to meetings. Well, I had to come to meetings. That was part of my sentence, but it was a 6-month treatment center. You people whine about 28 days. I'm going to tell you what, 6 months of wear you out. It was like AA boot camp. But I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for that experience. I'm so grateful. I was introduced to the steps. I was introduced to a woman who had gone through the steps out of the big book. I came to meetings. I began slowly but surely to believe what you guys were saying, maybe that your life was good. I started to see miracles happen. I started to see people stay sober. And there was like a part of me that really wanted to be here. I truly did. I started to work the steps with my sponsor, and I started to find a little bit of ease and comfort. And I stayed sober. Except I did, and I did get honest with my sponsor about this. My roommate was hoarding her pills because she didn't like the way they made her feel, and I took them all one night. No effect at all, but I did take them, and I picked up another white chip. But anyway, other than that, I did stay sober. I did abstain, and so I was coming to meetings. And I turned 18 while I was in that treatment center, and that was like a big deal because the deal was, couldn't go home with my mama. They were like, "No, kid, you're not coming here." And I didn't have any money, so I really had no choice. And I went into the Bethany house, and I tell you what, that transition was a little rough for me. I'm really grateful for that halfway house. I had to get a job. I did work at a movie theater, and but I really didn't work. I really didn't work. So I came here, and I got a job. I thought I would never have a day off ever again. I learned how to work. I'd never cooked a meal in my life, so I learned how to cook. And the women in that house taught me how to do my laundry. Let me tell you, I was stealing my roommate's laundry because I didn't know how to wash my clothes. And that's the truth. So that was happening. Paige was laughing because she was there. I got busted. So I was stealing my roommate's clothes. I didn't know how to do my laundry. They taught me. They taught me how to do my laundry. I didn't know how to cook, so some nights we had cereal for dinner, and that was okay. I love those women. They allowed that. But I learned how to cook while I was there. And it was a really great thing, and I learned how to hold a job, whining and complaining the whole time, but I held a job. And what happened when I moved into that halfway house is the sponsor that I slowly started to lose contact with, and then she moved. And let me tell you, it was all about me, and how dare she move. That's what I felt like. I was really, really, I was really not happy about that, and I wasn't interested in asking anybody else to be my sponsor because she was it, she was the one. And so that wasn't okay. So I slowly but surely started to isolate. I started to become very resentful all over again. It was my first resentment in AA, was to my sponsor who moved. And so I stopped picking up the phone. I stopped doing all of the things that I had been taught to do while I was in a very, very disciplined environment. And slowly but surely, that restless, irritable discontent crept up on me all over again. just thoughts of, that I'm all alone and no one understands, all that crap that our alcoholism gives us. All of that stuff started to come back for me. And, I'm not going to do a fifth step up here, but, a series of events occurred and I was kicked out of the halfway house. I ended up drinking again, ultimately, is what happened. And such a long story, but, I'll tell you what, being disconnected from this program, absolutely, it began a journey that I'm really grateful for today because it brought me to where I am currently and to where my last chip was picked up, but it was just horrific. I went back out. I thought it wasn't bad at 17. Let me tell you, it got bad real quick when I went back out this last time. A member of Alcoholics Anonymous allowed me, to stay with him. I ended up drinking in his home, totally disrespecting everything he had, took his car out one night, wrecked it in the front yard, just absolutely disrespected this person. I was in a car accident. The car didn't have tags on it. It's just crazy. And a lot of this is kind of like broken and blurred and blackout, not in a blackout, because I was just drinking so much. I ended up homeless at the park in Southern Pines. Let me just tell you, anytime I was homeless, it was cold as hell. I never was homeless like in June, July, which would have been good. I could live like a gypsy outside maybe for a while, but it was cold. And I ended up homeless around here, and I'll never forget, it was at the park in Southern Pines, and they have the roof area or whatever. And Paige and another woman in AA, two other women, came and they brought me Gatorade and Vienna sausages and crackers. And I was thinking, what's this crap? But they came and they sat down and they tried to carry the message, try to 12th step me. And I was like, no, I'm good, thank you. And crazy. And it's freezing rain outside. It wasn't pretty. But no, I'm good, thank you. And I'll tell you what, I ended up going on an incredible journey to Mecklenburg County. Why? I don't know. Why not? I was drinking round the clock at this point. I was in a car accident, went into the hospital. My mom thought, good, this is an opportunity to snag her. I had a sling on one arm. My mom brought me home. This is before I ended up, going to Charlotte. And I remember that someone had called my mom, probably Paige. Paige never was not on the phone with myself, my mom, my dad, somebody. It was like, where's Waldo? Except it was, where's Kelly? Everybody was trying to keep up with me. And my mom had picked up the phone at home, and I was on the couch, and I had a sling on one arm. I had a black eye from the car accident, and I had a moment of clarity that said, it's time to get up and go, honey. And I knew I had to drink. I absolutely had to drink. I think it had been maybe 2 days at that point I hadn't had a drink, and it was time to go. So I got up, packed a little backpack. I don't know what I packed. And I got up, sling on my arm, in my pajamas, black eye, and bebop down the road. And my mom, I'll never forget, my mom walked out the front door. I'm sorry. But I'll never forget, my mom walked out the front door, and she hung up the phone, and she screamed at the top of her lungs, please don't go. And it was like everything in me didn't want to go, but I had to go. And if you're alcoholic, then you absolutely understand that. Because in spite of all of the consequences that I'd had, in spite of all of the people that I'd hurt, I just didn't want to hurt. I didn't want to hurt anybody anymore, but I could not drink. Could not do it. So I walked down the street, and here's how cool God is. A van of dudes drove down the hill, and they stopped, and they were like, hey, Kelly. And I was thinking, what is this? And I looked, and it was 3 guys from Alcoholics Anonymous. Isn't that crazy? And they're like, where are you going? I was like, I don't know. And I just kept going, and totally, I was like, thanks, bye, have a good day. And crazy, right? God showed up right there. And so I kept going, and like I said, I ended up in Charlotte. Homeless on the street there. I was in and out of homeless shelters. I went to jail. Never thought a girl like me, why not, would go to jail. I ended up in jail. Wasn't fun. Living any and everywhere. Literally, when they talk about under the bridge, kind of Skid Row drunk, that's where it took me. That's where it took me. Absolutely degrading conditions. Living in hotels, doing things I said I would never do, showing up in places I said I'd never show up. It's just absolutely disgusting. So what ultimately happened is the people that I was with 2 other people at this point, people just like me, real winners. And so I was with them, and we were at the train station. I don't know where we were going, or the bus station in Charlotte. And we had all been drinking, pretty heavily for a while, and had been up for a couple days. Other substances were always part of my story. And we ended up at the train station, and I had threatened one of the people I was with, or maybe they threatened me or something. I was like, if you do it, I'm going to go in there, because there's a police station at the train station. And I said, I'm going to go in there, I'm going to report you. Like I had something, I don't know. And so we were like making threats, and I did. And I walked right into the police station, and I'm going to file a report on this person because I was just irate. And I went in there, and my mother had been contacting the Mecklenburg County Police saying, hey, if you see my daughter, I need you to pick her up and bring her to me. They can't do that. I guess I was 19 at this point. But my mother left a description of me and everything. I mean, she was adamant. I'm sure she called every day. Wouldn't surprise me. And so when I walked in there and I started to give this report, they asked me who I was. I gave them my name, and they kind of looked at each other, and they knew me. But prior to this, we were walking the streets all the time. There was one police officer, his name was Jason, and he stopped on a regular basis, probably about once a week. And he'd stop to kind of check on us and say, hey, how you doing? How's everything going? Are you okay? Blah, blah, blah. I mean, God showed up always showed up in my life. So they kind of knew me, and they said, what's your name? Blah, 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 and they started to take the report. And he looked at me and he said, are you hungry? And I'm like a little trash rat. I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, I'm hungry. I hadn't eaten in a week, dude. Like, do I look hungry? Yeah, I think I did. So I was like, yes, I am. And he said, well, what would you like? And I said, oh, pizza would be great. Pizza's always been my favorite. And so, this sounds crazy. I swear to God, I'm not making up a bit of this. It sounds crazy. And he said, okay, honey, well, we'll order pizza. How about we order pizza and we'll sit down and eat it for dinner? And I'm thinking, are you shitting me? And so we did. And here's the thing. The window of opportunity at that moment was like this big, and it was closing fast. You know what I'm saying? Because many times before, 7 different times, my mother had gotten in touch with me and said, honey, I'll be there in 2.5 hours. And I said, okay, Mom, I'll be here. I'll be at this corner. I'll be at this homeless shelter. I'll be here. And if it was if she said I'd be there at 2:30, at 2:15, I'd start to walk out the door, because the pain and the idea, just even the thought of coming home, going to treatment and getting sober was my skin would begin to crawl immediately. And I'd run. I was scared to death to get sober again. So the window was closing quick, but they had me with the pizza. And I was like, sure. So I did. And so I sat down, and they brought a pizza in, and I ate almost the entire thing. Meanwhile, I had no idea that what was going on behind the scenes. Meanwhile, they had contacted my mother, and they said, listen, she's here, but we cannot hold her. So if you want to come, you need to come now, because this is it. And that's just, God is so good. That's all I could think, is that God is so good. Because things were getting incredibly dangerous on the street. I don't know how much longer I would have lived, to be honest with you, out there. So what ended up happening is my parents sent a taxi to where I was, and it was about a 45-minute drive from where my aunt lived. And the taxi came, picked me up, and they escorted me to my aunt's house, and my mom and dad were already there. They had made the drive, and they were standing on the curb as if they were greeting a child who had been in Afghanistan for 9 months. And so I got out of the car, and my parents just stopped. They hugged my neck, and my mom was sobbing, almost fell to her knees. And my dad grabbed me, hugged me, told me he loved me. I cannot recall a time prior to that moment my dad told me he loved me, ever. But I heard it that day. Maybe he'd said it many times, I don't know. But I heard it then. And I'd like to tell you that my life has been happy, joyous, and free since. That's not the case. When we got in the car, my mama called Paige and said, we got her. And, it was good. And there was this really short-lived hope, because I was home for, I don't know, maybe a week or so. And I was coming to meetings, and I was sick. You know how we are. I was coming to meetings. Oh, I'm sorry. Prior to that, my dad tried to take me to detox. took me up to the hospital for detox. They told me there wasn't a bed. A series of events happened. They threatened to call the police on me. I said, no, not again. I started walking down the street, and my dad happened to be on smoke break, circling around. You can't smoke at the hospital. And he works there, and he happened to be on smoke break, and he was circling around, coming back through, and he saw me, and he picked me up. Thank God, because I was going to get drunk then. But I went home, and prior to that, anyway, so I was coming to meetings, I was doing the deal. Not really telling you I was okay, but I was absolutely miserable. I had started doing some other stuff, and I was lying to all of you. I picked up a white chip. It wasn't a clean white chip, and I was absolutely miserable again, in spite of like that horrible run, in spite of everything. I absolutely couldn't stop. And what I know is that just coming to meetings, hanging out, smoking cigarettes, telling you that I'm good, drinking your coffee, lying, that is not going to keep me sober. I mean, I've tried many times to do just that, and it didn't work for me. So the last time, like I said, my dad picked me up. I was walking down the street, and, I'm sorry. I'm totally off track here. So those 2 weeks that I was doing all of that, I went out, and I'll never forget, I went out with the intention. My mom had gotten really kind of comfortable with me. I was coming to meetings, lying to all of you, telling you I was okay. And my mom had let me go out with a guy, which sounds like totally normal, but for me it's not. I always get in trouble. So she let me go out with this dude, and we went out, and I remember going out with the intention to have just a few drinks with him. At his apartment, we went back, and he got out a 40-ounce beer out of the refrigerator. And I don't even remember finishing that drink before I went into a blackout. I came to the next morning in his clothes on the floor, just a disgusting mess. My hair plaited to the side of my face. Had no idea what had happened before I finished that drink. Had no idea what happened that night. And my mother, standing in the doorway looking down at me in absolute disgust. And I was just horrified, totally disgusted. I had done it again. Here I am. It was horrible, absolutely horrible. So she picked me up, threw me in the back seat of the car. When she tells that story, she talks about how she wanted to kick me in the head and leave me for dead on the side of the road. And I just, I can't even imagine what that would be like, to be a mother going through that. So anyway, my journey began in Alcoholics Anonymous shortly after that. I came to a meeting. I remember that my first sponsor back this time gave me my last white chip. It was at Primary Purpose, and they carried me. This is when they met in the back of the building. A few people had to help carry me down the steps because I was so extremely sick. I'd gotten kicked out of the hospital when I was trying to get in a detox, so my mama put a mattress on the floor in her room and helped detox me there. And she held me in her lap, just rubbed my head while I cried. She cried with me. She spoon-fed me, put cold cloth on my head. My mom's a super champ, for real. And I don't know where I'd be without her. So I came back in, and I picked up my last white chip, and I tell you what, I got a sponsor, and I did absolutely whatever it took to stay sober this time. I was told that I had to get a sponsor, I had to work the steps, I had to change the way I was living, I had to find a God, and I was willing to do all of that. I was coming to meetings for about 7 days. I was back about a week, and that restless, irritable, and discontent came back. I was ready to blow my head off, and I knew this time that the only solution really was to either take my own life or to drink again. That's what I felt like. That's what I felt like coming here. And I'll never forget, I was 7 days sober, and I went into my room, and I got on my knees, and I prayed. I had never truly prayed before in my life. I had come to meetings, I had told you that I had a God. I was praying kind of, sort of, but I never really had a relationship with any kind of God. We weren't raised in the church. Church was like for weddings and funerals. We just didn't go. So for me, it was a foreign concept, but that night I did. I was absolutely in the just terrible shape. And before that, I picked up the phone and I called the guy that I had the guy who I was in his clothes on the floor. I picked up the phone to call him to say, hey, I'll meet you wherever, do whatever. I got to have, I got to have some tonight. And he didn't answer his phone, probably because my mother threatened his life when she came and picked me up. She's just that kind of woman. So, but he didn't answer the phone. And I thought, oh my God, what am I going to do? And so I hung the phone up, and about 5 minutes later, a moment of clarity came over me, and I thought, if he calls me back, I'm going to have to go, and if I go, I'll probably die. And I knew that to be my truth at that moment in my life. And so I went back in the living room, and I unplugged the phone. And I came back in my room, and I got on my knees, and I prayed. And I asked God at first to take the air from my lungs because I didn't want to live. I didn't want to be here, restless, irritable, discontent. I just couldn't live that anymore. And when that wasn't happening, I finally asked God to help me, begged God to help me, whatever it was. And that night, I experienced the presence of God. Something incredible happened. The obsession to drink was lifted from me, and I haven't had it since that time. I felt a sense of ease and comfort I had never felt in my life. I felt, the same way that I felt when I took that drink for the first time, that ease and comfort. I felt right and whole and complete with the world. I felt okay in my own skin. I felt like I could walk with you and you could walk with me, and everything was okay. And I knew that everything was okay. I knew it that night. And the next morning, I got up, and I was like shouting that from the rooftops, and I painted flowers on my wall, and I was all about peace, love, and woo. And and I was like telling my mom, so if you've had this experience, like keep it cool for a little while. Because I was telling my mom, and she was like, did you take LSD? And I was like, no. I was like, no, this is legit. Like, legit, this happened. And but 2 weeks later, what's really cool is that 2 weeks later, my mother came to me in a private setting, and she said, honey, I believe you. I don't know what happened, but I believe you because I can see it in your eyes. Like, she knew that something had happened. And my journey really began in Alcoholics Anonymous after that. And I remember after a meeting, I death gripped a woman, and I said, look, dude, whatever you got, I got to have because I'm dying here. And she was willing to help me, and that became my first sponsor. And I'll tell you what, that woman was awesome. I mean, she was a little crazy, but she was awesome. And she took time out of her life that she really didn't have. She worked way too much, and she had kids. And so sometimes I'd go to her house, and like we'd sit in the living room or at the dining room table. She'd be cooking dinner, and we'd read through the big book. Like, that's just what we did. And I'm so grateful for that. And then we started a big book study here, and that was the deal. My life was very simple at that point. So really my life was AA. I mean, I had nothing else going on. I was about 30 days sober, and I got invited to go to Founders Day, and I went. If you haven't been, I encourage you to go. It was the most incredible experience I have had in my sobriety. You think it's awesome, like standing around and a meeting this big, praying the Lord's Prayer. It will just like blow you out of the water to hear thousands of people praying the Lord's Prayer together. I mean, it was incredigo. And I got to go to Dr. Bob's home. I took my third step there with Wallace. Had an incredible experience. And then, I got to be a part of a motorcade, which took a wreath to Dr. Bob's grave. I mean, it was just awesome. I mean, totally groovy. It was just an awesome experience. And here's what's crazy is that there was this guy that ended up going on the same trip with me. And him, and my sponsor sat in the back. She sat in the middle. Good for her. And, turns out, he's just totally awesome. And 4 years later, we got married. And which is like awesome. My life today, let me just tell you about my life today. My life today, I'm sorry, is, I think about this girl with like pink hair and black nails and combat boots who came in here kicking and screaming and ready to take her life. And today, my life is awesome. My life is so good. And this past year, I got to bring another life into the world, which is crazy. And I pray, hold a seat for the boy. I mean, bless his heart. I mean, I pray. I pray. Here's what's the most important thing to me in my life today is that we keep the integrity of Alcoholics Anonymous true, because I want it to still be here if ever he comes knocking at the door. We need to be here. Because I don't know where I would have gone if you guys weren't here for me. So, and my husband is great. I get to stay at home and watch this cool kid grow up. I get to sponsor women and watch incredibly awesome things happen in their life and see the light come on. And I couldn't imagine a life anywhere else in the world with anyone else doing anything else. This is it. This was the last house on the block for me. And I'm glad I came in. So I'm going to end with this. We are responsible when anyone anywhere reaches out for help. I want the hand of AA to be there. And for that, responsible. Thank you.